thing truckers are interested in is how fast their trucks will go and how far their CBs will reach.
Well, hello, my friend. Thanks for joining me, Jim Campbell, for today's video. As you know, we do everything or talk about everything trucking related. This video is about the proposals in Congress concerning the amount of fraud that has plagued the trucking industry since the dawn of time. Please watch all the way through so you can better grasp the issues at hand. After all, this information does concern you and the industry you work in. Also, please leave a comment below if there are any other issues or topics that you would like me to discuss. I've been involved in the trucking industry for over 3 decades now, and I've seen a lot of changes over the years, some good, but mostly bad. It's nice to see legislators and government finally paying attention to what the trucking industry had been trying to tell them for years now. What I am speaking about is the fraud that exists in the trucking industry, and that fraud is not centered in one spot. You have scammers on the freight brokerage side of things. You have rip-off artists masquerading as shippers or receivers, and then you also have trucking companies, both real and fake, involved as well. For too long, the trucking industry has been plagued by fraud. A piece of legislation aimed to tackle this high amount of fraud in our industry has been introduced. It's nice to see that it is a bipartisan bill that surprisingly received near unanimous support from all sectors of the industry. This was the Household Goods Shipping Consumer Protection Act. Today, however, a significant stride is being made with the introduction of groundbreaking legislation aimed at ridding the system of its long-standing issues with fraud. This is not merely a bill, it is a beacon of hope, illuminating a path towards integrity and transparency in a trucking industry that is crucial to our national infrastructure. It's a pivotal moment for the trucking industry. After years of wrestling with widespread deceit, manipulation, and fraud, a significant legislative breakthrough has been achieved with the introduction of the Household Goods Shipping Consumer Protection Act. This legislation, a rare product of bipartisan collaboration, addresses the deep-seated issues of fraud that have undermined the trucking industry's credibility. Representatives Eleanor Holmes Norton and Mike Easel have spearheaded this initiative, bringing together a coalition of lawmakers who recognize the urgency of the situation. Their leadership marks a significant turn in legislative attitude towards the trucking industry, emphasizing the need for stringent regulatory measures to flush out fraud. The bill introduces comprehensive measures to overhaul how freight carriers and brokers are registered with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. By tightening registration requirements and enhancing enforcement, the bill aims to create a more secure and transparent operational environment for all individuals and companies involved in the trucking industry. The announcement of the new trucking legislation was met with a wave of approval across the industry. Leaders of various trucking associations expressed relief and optimism about the potential impacts of these changes. The consensus was clear. It was time for a change, and this legislation was a step in the right direction. Pugh, the Executive Vice President of the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association, highlighted the practical benefits of the legislation. He noted, by requiring a physical business address for registration, we can better track and hold accountable those who have exploited the system. This requirement is a fundamental shift intended to weed out fictitious entities operating within the industry. The legislation also mandates increased transparency in the relationships between brokers, carriers, and other parties. This move is designed to expose and eliminate conflicts of interest and hidden alliances that have facilitated fraudulent activities. The industry's response underscores a collective need for a more accountable trucking environment. The bill received unprecedented support from various corners of the trucking industry. Major groups including the American Trucking Association's Moving and Storage Conference and the National Association of Small Trucking Companies voiced their strong endorsement, emphasizing the bill's potential to significantly reduce fraud. And Reinke, president of the Transportation Intermediaries Association, lauded the legislation for its robust approach to combating fraud. This is a monumental step toward stabilizing the operational landscape for everyone in the trucking industry, she remarked. Her statement reflects a shared industry perspective that effective legislation is key to sustainable growth and investment. David Owen, president of the National Association of Small Trucking Companies, further highlighted the operational implications of the bill. Requiring a tangible address of business for registration will disrupt the prevalent online fraud schemes that have plagued our industry, he noted. This endorsement underscores the industry's readiness to embrace changes that promise greater regulatory effectiveness. In response to the pressing need for a dedicated focus on fraud, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has established a new registration fraud team. This team is designed to spearhead efforts in identifying and combating fraudulent practices within the trucking registration process. Ken Riddle, director of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's Office of Registration, outlined the team's mission at the annual Safety Research Forum. Our goal is to restore trust and security in the registration process, ensuring that only legitimate and compliant entities are operating, he declared. This initiative is a direct result of industry feedback and is intended to close the loopholes that have allowed fraudulent activities to happen. The registration fraud team is set to implement a series of measures aimed at tightening the vetting process and enhancing the integrity of the registration database. This includes more rigorous background checks and the integration of advanced technologies to track and analyze registration data. The formation of this team is a testament to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's commitment to transforming regulatory practices to better protect the industry and the public. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has taken definitive steps to combat the sophisticated fraud tactics that have evolved within the trucking industry. One of the most significant changes is the suspension of online personal identification number, or PIN, requests, a measure designed to prevent unauthorized access to carrier information. Ken Riddle explained the rationale behind this move. We've seen an alarming increase in cases where fraudsters manipulate our systems to create fake identities. By moving to a more secure, multi-factor authentication process, we significantly reduce this risk. This shift is part of a broader strategy to overhaul the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's digital and operational infrastructures to combat fraud more effectively. Moreover, the agency is implementing a comprehensive identity and business verification process for all existing registrants. This initiative, involving external contractors, aims to cleanse the current system of any entities that have previously slipped through the cracks. This is a crucial step towards reestablishing the credibility of the registration database, ensuring that only legitimate businesses can operate within the regulatory framework set by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. During a critical hearing before the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Jeffrey Tucker, representing the Transportation Intermediaries Association, delivered a compelling testimony about the rampant fraud in the trucking industry. We are witnessing an unprecedented wave of fraud with fake carriers and brokers infiltrating our systems, he stated emphatically. Tucker's testimony shed light on the dual nature of the fraud affecting the industry, not just through carrier operations, but also via broker scams. He pointed out the ease with which fraudsters could exploit the current regulatory gaps, emphasizing the urgent need for legislative and regulatory reforms to address these vulnerabilities. His testimony not only highlighted the challenges, but also underscored the critical need for the new legislation and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's enhanced focus on fraud prevention. Tucker's insights were pivotal in illustrating the complex landscape of trucking fraud and the multifaceted approach needed to tackle it effectively. The issue of a driver shortage was a contentious topic during the legislative hearing. Jeffrey Tucker argued against the prevalent narrative of a driver shortage, suggesting that the data did not support such claims. The numbers tell us that we've seen significant growth in the number of drivers. The real issue is the distribution and utilization of these resources, he explained. However, Representative Mike Bost is a former owner of a trucking company and provided a contrasting viewpoint, highlighting the impact of lifestyle choices and legal restrictions on driver availability. With the increasing legalization of marijuana, we are seeing potential drivers being sidelined by drug tests. This is a real concern that affects how we assess driver shortages, he argued. This debate underscores the complexity of issues facing the trucking industry beyond fraud. It highlights the need for a better understanding of the factors influencing driver availability and how these interact with broader economic and regulatory changes. Global supply chain concerns. Recent disruptions in global shipping, particularly the attacks on cargo vessels in the Red Sea, have raised significant concerns about the stability of the global supply chain. Stephen Edwards from the Virginia Port Authority highlighted the direct impacts of these disruptions on shipping schedules and operational costs. These incidents not only delay shipments, but also lead to increased costs for shippers due to detours and heightened security measures, Edwards testified. The situation has prompted calls for greater oversight and regulatory intervention to mitigate the impact on the trucking industry, which is heavily reliant on efficient and reliable supply chains. Jeffrey Tucker further emphasized the need for legislative attention to these global challenges. We need to ensure that our regulatory framework can adapt to these external pressures, which are increasingly affecting our domestic operations, he noted. This part of the hearing painted a clear picture of how interconnected and vulnerable the trucking industry is to global events. New Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration rule. In a strategic move to protect trucking companies from financial vulnerabilities, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has introduced a new rule targeting broker and freight forwarder responsibilities. This rule is designed to safeguard against unpaid claims by setting stringent financial security requirements for brokers. The new rule requires brokers to maintain adequate financial security measures, such as irrevocable letters of credit or treasury bonds, to ensure they can cover claims against them, explained in Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration spokesperson. This measure is expected to improve financial stability and accountability within the broker segment of the industry. Moreover, the rule includes provisions for the immediate suspension of broker operating authority if their financial security falls below the required threshold and is not replenished promptly. This is a significant development aimed at maintaining financial integrity and protecting carriers from potential defaults by brokers. Moving forward, as the trucking industry continues to evolve, the legislation and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's new initiatives represent crucial steps towards a more regulated and transparent future. The overhaul of the registration system and the introduction of more rigorous verification processes are expected to significantly reduce the incidence of fraud. The agency is also seeking further enhancements to its systems, with plans to introduce additional security measures and data collection techniques. These changes are part of a broader strategy to modernize and strengthen the regulatory framework governing the trucking industry. The path forward is challenging but clear. With the collective efforts of lawmakers, industry leaders, and regulatory bodies, there is a serious foundation for achieving a safer, more reliable trucking industry. This comprehensive exploration of the new trucking legislation and its broader implications demonstrates a pivotal moment in the industry's history. With a continued push from all concerned as well as cooperation, the future of trucking can be reshaped into one characterized by greater security, fairness, and efficiency. The essay titled Cracking Down on Fraud. The new trucking legislation explained, authored by Michael Lewis, delves into the intricacies and implications of the recent legislative measures introduced to combat fraud in the trucking industry. The essay is structured into 10 parts, each addressing different facets of the legislation and the industry's response. The opening part sets the stage by highlighting the bipartisan support and the objectives of the Household Goods Shipping Consumer Protection Act, which targets fraudulent activities within the industry. The subsequent sections discuss the positive reception from industry leaders, endorsements from major trucking associations, and the establishment of a specialized registration fraud team by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Further into the essay, the focus shifts to specific strategies implemented to combat fraud, including technological advancements and procedural changes. Testimonies from industry representatives shed light on the current challenges and the effectiveness of the new measures. The discussion on driver shortages and global supply chain concerns provides a broader context, showing the interconnectedness of the trucking industry with wider economic and regulatory environments. The introduction of new Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration rules aimed at enhancing financial security and accountability among brokers is also examined. The final part of the essay looks forward, discussing ongoing and future initiatives to refine and strengthen industry regulations. The comprehensive analysis concludes with a reflection on the collaborative efforts required to ensure a secure and transparent trucking industry moving forward. That's it for now. I want to thank you for watching, and please leave me a comment below about any other topic you would like me to tackle. See you in my next video.
Thank you, my friends. Take care. Be well. Bye-bye.
I can't hardly wait till I'm a trucker.